going on, everybody, and welcome back. Today we are in the shop, and if you cannot tell, we have the silver 12 valve in the shop today, and you probably already know by the title of this video what we are doing. But I have owned a ton of these trucks, and as you know, I live in Ohio. It gets cold here, and these diesels generally don't like to warm up that fast in the wintertime, especially with the temperatures we get in Ohio. I know there's some people out there that get way colder than us, but these trucks did not come with high idle, and there is no simple high idle kit that you can just buy and install. And a lot of the posts that I've seen people make of making their own, and it requires like 5 or 6 different switches and tapping into your factory cruise control and all this, that, and the other, whatever. But I do not want to tap into my factory cruise control because it works good and I really love it. And I do not want to tap into those wires. I don't want to mess with that system at all. I don't want to cause any problems to that system because I want it to be functioning 100% of the time and not be messed up by something that I did. So with that being said, we are going to be using a cruise control actuator off of a 2nd gen. And this is probably not the best way to do it, probably not the way that I would choose to do it, but I have these parts laying around. As you can tell, we have trucks everywhere, parts everywhere. I have quite a few of these laying around, so I'm just going to use one of these. It came off of a 2nd gen. Actually, I think it came off a 12 valve if I'm not mistaken, but it doesn't matter. I think the 24 valve and 12 valves are both exactly the same. They use the same pin, same connectors, same style, everything. So what we're going to be doing, I'm going to try to mount that actuator somewhere in this general area, and then I'm going to tee my vacuum line off of this one. You will not have this tee here on your factory truck. You'll just have your tee up there. But when I redid my vacuum actuator for the cruise control on this truck, I put this piece in with this new tee, just to make it easier for adding stuff later on down the road and whatnot. But actually it's coming in handy really well today because we're going to be adding another piece of vacuum. So I'm just going to tee in right here. You could tee in up here or add a tee anywhere you want, but I'm going to try to mount that actuator here and then run my cable down to the factory little bracket that has your throttle cable and your cruise control cable going into it. I don't know if I'm going to have to drill a new hole in that or weld a tab. And then when you come up here, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but where your cables tie into your throttle lever up there, yeah, you can't really see it. You'll be able to see it better later on when we get to working on it and stuff. But there's essentially 2 cables that go to 2 little, I don't know what you want to call them, quick disconnect mounts for your cable ends. We're going to try to take apart another throttle linkage bracket, and we're going to get one of those little quick connect cables or quick connect things that we can just hook this one straight into. Probably going to end up extending the original one so I can keep all 3 on the same one, or I might just weld, if I can talk today, might weld one of those new mounts on the top of that. So I'll have 2 on the side, 1 on the top for this new one. Now we're not going to be using this one because this one's a little rusty, crusty, whatnot. I have a nicer one that's in this truck. This is a 24 valve truck, but they're all the same. So I'm going to be using this one. Still got to pull the battery tray out and get this out, and then I'm going to use this pigtail off of this one so I have a factory style connector, and then I'm going to be running all my wires to that. But this system, if you don't know anything about the 2nd gens, is kind of a pain to diagnose and run through all your problems and whatnot if you have any, because a lot of the stuff on this truck is turned on and switched with grounds. It's not your traditional, you have a positive and negative. It is, you have 2 positives and one of them turns to a negative controlled by the PCM, and that's how a lot of your stuff turn on. I know the headlights and stuff like that, some of your interior lighting is like that. So if you're searching an electrical problem on one of these 2nd gens, it's really hard to get turned around and backwards and really confused because a lot of it is controlled by grounds. So if you can wrap your head around the concept of them using grounds to turn on and off stuff, it will make your life a lot easier when you're diagnosing problems or working or adding stuff. I added LED floorboard lights in my other truck, my other 12 valve, and it took me forever to figure out that the interior lights were controlled by ground and not positive. So I just wanted to give you guys that little bit of information in case you're having problems with that, or in the future you want to add something. But essentially what we're going to do is one pin on here. I found a diagram. I will try to put that diagram up on the screen if I can figure out how to do that. But one pin has 12 volt power, one pin is grounded, and then the other two pins control your accel and decel, and they are controlled by grounds. They do not get a 12 volt signal. They would originally have a grounded signal from the PCM to either accel or decel. So we're going to give the 12 volt pin, I don't know which one it is, I haven't looked at the diagram, but one of these pins will get 12 volt, and that will be put onto a switch inside the cab, so I can turn the system on and off with one switch. And then the second switch is going to be ran to a ground, and that will be to the accel pin. I'm not going to do a decel pin on this because for high idle I really don't care if I can turn it down. I just want it to go up. If I go too far, I just flip the whole system off and then swip it back on, and I'll start all over again. So I'm only going to have a 2-switch system, and it's going to be a latching on-off switch for the 12 volt, and then a momentary switch for the accel, and then our grind will just go straight to ground for the one pin that needs a full ground all the time, and then the other one will have the 12 volt off the switch, and then we'll have a momentary to whichever one of these pins is an accel by ground. So that's how we're going to do it. At least that's how we're gonna try to do it. If it does not work, I guess you won't be seeing this video because I won't upload. So if you do see this video, it means something worked or something cool happened. So I'm gonna get to tearing this truck apart, getting this vacuum actuator out and the pigtail off of that, and then we'll probably end up pulling this whole throttle bracket off, so it's easier to work on, easier to see. I can show you guys more of how I do it, and then we're going to bench test everything before we even try to put it in the truck. So that will probably be the first thing we do once we get the new vacuum actuator out. We'll probably just bring a battery over here and get some wires and maybe pull in a car so I don't have a loud truck running, and run a vacuum line to it and just test it all, make sure it all works before I even start cutting stuff up in the truck and wiring stuff and mounting weird stuff everywhere. So that's what we're going to get started doing. Hopefully I will have working high idle on this thing, because it is getting winter time. I don't really want to drive in the winter, but it is the work truck, it is the shop truck, it is what hauls the trailers. So if trailers need hauled in the winter time, this old girl's going to do it, and I would love to have her warm up a little bit faster. Also, sneak peek, have an exhaust brake off of a 24 valve with a little shifter mounted on off switch. I've already been messing with this. I already have this working on the bench, just with this switch. It is not going to have all the fancy safety features that came on 24 valves, you know, like I don't know what safety features they really had, but I know that it turns off and on at certain points when the truck does certain things, and blah 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 whatever. I don't really care about all that. I just want the thing to come off and on, and I already have that working to a certain extent. One thing I might do is I might find a way to run a switch to my throttle to where the exhaust brake will only work when the throttle is off. So when it is at 0% throttle is the only time that it'll come off. I'm thinking of using some type of push button switch, tactile switch mounted to the throttle bracket, so when it closes the brake will turn on, and then when you push the gas, the brake or the exhaust brake will turn off, and then when you let off the gas, your exhaust brake can turn on. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, or if I'm just going to leave it on the on-off switch that I can control within the cab. But one thing with the 12 valves is you do have to run bigger exhaust valve springs, and we will be doing that. So I'm going to hold off on mounting that until I get my valve springs in. But today we're going to start working on this high idle switch. So as you can tell, I got that cruise control actuator out of that truck. I got my pigtail here, pulled the protectant sleeve off the thing. Got a couple tools here, spool of wire, and a battery. Now, this is the diagram that I will put on the screen if I can. It has your pins on the actuator and your pins on your connector. The pins are like this. Your black wire, at least this is for second gen, your black wire is your ground. Your blue with a red stripe wire is your 12 volt power. Your green and red is normally selected by the PCM, and it'll ground this pin when you want to allow vacuum to leave the solenoid, and this will decrease your throttle, which we are probably not going to be using this. I do not plan on using this. If for some reason this has to be connected to make this thing work, we will figure that out later. And then this tan with red stripe is your ground wire to Excel. So we're gonna get this thing, we're gonna get these wires stripped up a little bit, get it plugged back into the actuator, hooked up to the battery, and then I was thinking about bringing a car in here to hook this vacuum line to, but I think I'm just gonna hook the wires up and suck on the thing. Don't say it. I'm just gonna suck on the thing and see if the cable moves or if anything works, and then if it all works like this, I guess we'll get her hooked in the truck and run into town and grab a couple switches and get this thing hooked up. Oh, that was not a good time, didn't do anything. Doesn't help with the batteries dead. Alright. This battery should not be dead. This is one of the batteries we use for our winch. Oh, it works. I don't know if this is working. I know that it's letting air pass when I connect this to a ground, but I don't know if it's actually pulling. It's pulling the lever or not. Sounds like we have a leak. Oh, it works. Okay, so we did have to use this green and red wire, which is for the decel, but what it did was it closed it closed the solenoid on the inside and let it actually draw a vacuum and keep it in the chamber. I was kind of wondering about that because it said that that green and red wire was kind of like a dump valve type thing. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I added this, or I put this to ground, and then when I touch this to ground, it sucked this cable in. I'll try to get you guys a better view so you can see that cable actually working, moving. It's actually moving pretty quick, so I'm kind of nervous as to how this is gonna, how fine adjustable this is gonna actually be, but so you can see it works pretty good, and then it's stuck there, so it is not coming out, it is holding it. So I don't know if I disconnect my power wire. I'm hoping that it'll go out so I can still just run 2 switches. If I can get these apart. Jeez. Okay, so it did return, it released that. So I'm still gonna be able to get away with just running 2 switches. I will run a switch from my 12-volt wire for the overall system on off. And then I will run the green wire and the black wire to a ground, because apparently you need this green and red wire to close up the system and let it build vacuum to pull the cable. And then this one will be ran to my momentary switch to a ground, so I can adjust my Excel, which in this case is just going to be RPMs for high. So I think it's time to get that throttle bracket off and start figuring out where we're going to mount this thing. So as you can tell, we got our bracket off. Pretty simple, just 3 10mm bolts. You got to take your throttle linkage ball and socket off the bottom down there, and then you just have your throttle cable and your cruise control cable. They just kind of fit in there with 2 little tabs. You press the tabs down, pull the whole thing out, make sure you pop off your cable ends from the bracket, and that thing comes right out. We got it set over here, and I've been kind of looking at it, trying to figure out where I want to mount my cable and then where I want it to hook up here. Originally, I was thinking of taking this piece off and then welding me an extension tab and putting another one of these little quick connects on top, but after looking at it, I would have to put, I would have to cut out a square this same size here in order to do that, and I don't really have a good way to do that because I don't want my cables, I want my cable to be as straight as I can. I don't want it coming out of here at an angle because I don't want it to rub and fray this cable. So my next thing is, I was thinking I could weld another one right here on the shaft, or possibly screw one in depending on what I can find around the shop to use, because I'd really like to have another one of these little couplers that go on the end of this cable really easy. So if I can find one, I'm thinking about welding one here and then cutting this bracket here and here, and then straightening it out so it's straight, because I don't want, again, I don't want this cable at an angle. And then weld this, after I bend this thing back straight, I will weld my bottom tabs back onto this wherever it lines up when this thing is straight, and then grab some spare steel laying around the shop and weld this gap smaller until it's the same size as this, so that my cable end will fit in there, and that'll give me a straight shot to this new mount that I put on here. That's my plan, at least. I'm gonna go see what I can find for mounts. I know I have some steel to make this piece, but I really don't want to cut up this bracket, but I really want high idle, and I don't see any downsides of cutting these off and moving them and re-welding them. So this square is not used. I don't really know what this is for, at least on my truck anyways, and my truck's a Laramie and it has cruise control and pretty much every other option, so I don't really know what this hole's for. This big round one is for your throttle cable, and then this small square is for your cruise control. So I don't know. I wish this square would have been this side. That would have made my life a whole lot easier, but I think we're just gonna cut these off, bend this bracket straight, fill in this hole until it's the same size as this one, and then we'll try to figure out what we can do here to put another mount on it. So after walking around the shop, we have this spare 24 valve motor sitting here, and as you can see on this throttle position sensor bracket, we have the throttle lever that bolts to the throttle position sensor, and as you can see, there is another one of those mounts on this side, and there's also, I don't know if you can see it there on the bottom, there is another one, and this one just looks like it's kind of pressed in there, and then they folded the back side of it. So I would like to get that one off, just because it's a little bit slimmer. Probably would be easier, but this one, if it comes down to it, we can just cut that one off because these are not bolted on. We can cut that one off, and that will give us a lot to weld to, but it's also going to make it stick out further, which I'm not really a big fan of, but it comes down to it, I guess we'll have to use that one. Alright, so here's what we got so far. I took off this piece, took off the longer one. Actually, I think it's gonna work out better, because when you put that on there, you look through there in the center, it actually lines up better than if it was flush. So that's gonna work out good. Hopefully that'll weld decent. I'll clean that up. But on this, I got it pretty straight. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm gonna re-weld this onto there and re-weld that side back on, weld it straight, and then I got a piece of this 1/8 inch thick steel. I'm just gonna cut out this size out of this, make me like a little plate to put over top of this hole to make it that size, and then we'll be ready to go to try this thing out. We'll put this bracket back in the truck, get that all hooked up, and then we still got to run to the store and get our switches and some different color wire and stuff like that to install the switches and the rest of the stuff. Well, we just got back from the store. Stopped at O'Reilly's. We got some stuff. So I picked up 2 different color rolls of wire, and I have black. And then we got some connectors to make it easy to plug onto the switches. And then we've got these 2 cheap switches for now. One's just an on-off, and the other one is a momentary on. And we're going to be ordering new ones because these ones are pretty ugly, and I'd rather have some more flush fitting ones, look a little bit better. But we're gonna get these put in just so I can make sure this thing works, and it'll work up until I get those new ones in. So I kind of got this actuator set Let me get some light here. So I got this actuator just kind of sitting here right now. I think that's going to be its final resting place. I got plenty of length on my cable, and then all my wires will be right here. It'll be real easy to tuck it in through the firewall and then run to my battery terminals, whatever I need to, and then my vacuum line will tie in right there. So that's all good. We got the bracket for the throttle. Threw a quick coat of paint on it, but got that hole made, got that all reloaded, waiting on that to dry. And then as far as all the wiring, I'm gonna wrap it all. I got this nice braided nylon style sheathing for the cable. And then yeah, we're just gonna butt connector it together for now. And then as you can tell, these battery terminals have seen better days, so I'm gonna be replacing the battery terminals, so I'm not so worried about the connection going to the batteries for now. We will switch those all over when I swap my battery terminals here soon. So I think next thing is we're gonna get this mounted down, probably get that throttle bracket back on, get these cables all hooked up, this, and then last thing we will do is wiring. Figured I'd try to show you what these cables all look like before I put the charge tube back on and everything. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see, but you can see this is your factory cruise control one, this is your throttle, and then this bottom one with the bare cable, that is the new one that I put in. You see this top one, cruise control, this is your throttle, and then this one is the new high idle one. I didn't get this bolted down yet. I wanted to make sure I had my routing for my cable in a good spot. And that's all snugged up, everything. All the bolts are back in it, just 3 10 mil. Make sure you put your return spring and your lower linkage for your throttle that goes back to your governor housing. And you're pretty much good to go. I'm gonna put these charge tubes back on. I'm gonna get this thing mounted down and trim up my vacuum line to fit, and then we'll move on to wiring. So we just got our two switches ran here inside. They're just kind of, just gonna rig them up like this for now. I got plenty of cord to run it. I think I'm gonna make me a plate for this little slot right here, but I'm gonna wait to do that until the switches that I ordered come in. They're just like little round push button LED ones, so I really don't like these, but these do work. So we're gonna, so our red wire is for our 12 volts, and then our green is our ground that's gonna control our solenoid. So we'll flick this one on, and then we take this one that is a momentary switch. It takes a little bit to get it to engage. But as you can tell, it works. Then turn it off. Turn it back on. Grab the green one. Got the red wire one. And kill it. It is the next day. I wanted to wrap up the video by showing you how it worked on a cold start, cold morning. Got a little bit of snow on the ground here in Ohio, and it is currently, let me get my phone up here, 34 degrees, so not too cold, I guess. Here in Ohio, that's not that bad, but we're in the truck. I just got my wires kind of dangling here for right now because I don't like these switches, and I am going to make an aluminum bezel for in here to mount switches. I ordered new ones, just little push button ones. They're round, flush fit ones, because I don't want these things sticking out, and I think they're ugly, and they're kind of cheap little switches. They were like $3 from O'Reilly's, but we'll get this thing started up. I don't know how she's gonna act. Remember, this is an Alabama truck, so this is probably some of the coldest weather she's seen. This is definitely the coldest weather she's seen since I've had it. Some ice on the windshield. Let her warm up for a second. Oh, she's running. Flip this thing on. Now, this isn't really adjusted. There's a lot of slack in the cable, so I need to adjust that up a little bit, but give it a couple flicks. Oh, she bumped up a little bit. Bump her up a little bit more. And then grid heaters are going to cycle off and on, so it's going to drop a little bit here and there, but I'd say she's right at 1200, somewhere between 11 and 1250, I would say, because I'm pretty sure that little mark is 1250. So we're just under that. Probably when the grid heaters cycle off, it'll climb. Yeah, you can see it's getting up to 1250 right now, which I'd say that's pretty good for a high idle. She's definitely a little noisy on the high idle. I'd say it's going to work pretty good. I am going to be putting an exhaust brake on this thing. So she's just a bump above 1250. I'd say that's pretty good. After I get the new switches in, I'll try it out then and let you guys know after we get the little mount made and everything for that too. But I'm hoping with the exhaust brake on here, it'll warm up quite a bit faster, having the exhaust brake on and the high idle, just keeping more heat in the motor, because this thing takes forever to warm up in the morning. It does idle a little bit low. It's only like around 600, which I could bump that up a little bit, but you know, whatever. Too lazy to do that. So I'm hoping with the high idle and the exhaust brake, after we get that on, this thing will warm up a lot faster. But yeah, I think that's it. That's going to do it for this. Hopefully we're installing the exhaust brake here soon. I ordered some exhaust springs, because you have to run exhaust springs on your heavier exhaust springs when you do an exhaust brake on a 12 valve. So I got them ordered. They're not here yet, but when they come in, we'll get them installed. Until next time, y'all like, comment, subscribe. Let me know. Comment down below what you want to see. If you guys have any suggestions or different ideas for this thing or whatever, let me know. See y'all later.